Hi, weirdos. Welcome to Whiskey and Weird. Um, Gosh, what episode is this? Like episode 6? I don't even know. But tonight we are going to explore some weird-ologies, namely numerology, astrology, but even talking about things like psychology and what all of these things really mean to our experience in the human condition. And I'm going to share my ideas about it. Of course, I do not profess to be an expert on any of these subjects. This show isn't really about expertise. It's about just having some fun, talking about some things that are kind of on the fringe, if you will. So thanks for being here. Again, welcome to Whiskey and Weird. Whether you're watching here on Facebook or you're watching on YouTube, or maybe you're listening in on your favorite podcast app, I'm glad you're joining me. If you're here tonight live with me, please say hello in the comments and let me know what you're drinking too, because I always like to know. I know it's Wednesday, but Wednesday just feels like a perfect night to drink alcohol. And it's hump day, right? It's the last day of March. What else could we be celebrating? We're just celebrating because it's Whiskey and Weird night, right? Hi, Sean. I know you're drinking something. Hi, Carmen. Good to see you guys. Let me know if you are drinking something. I actually did a little pre-funking, had a little proper 12 before I got started while I ate my fake pizza. So yeah, I'm glad you guys are here, whether it's briefly or for a bit. I hope you'll stay for a while and participate in the conversation. Again, we're gonna chat a little bit about some weird-ologies and what these different things kind of tell us or might suggest about our experience of the human condition, right? And those of you who haven't seen, I've mentioned this a couple of times. So this is the book that I'm reading, Fringeology, by Steve Volk, and it's a pretty cool book. I'm really enjoying it. I am still I just finished up the chapter. I'm getting through it kind of slowly. I just finished up the first chapter, which was on near-death experiences, and now the next chapter is about telepathy. And I like this guy's perspective. He's a little bit more of a skeptic probably than I would, a little more to that side of the line, I guess. But I like his openness. I like, I mentioned on a previous episode, he quotes a gentleman's coined phrase, possibilianism. That's not a phrase, it's a word. And just this idea that, we have to be open to it. And one thing I love is he touches on what I've said on here before, that it doesn't make sense to get into arguments about these things, right? Because nobody really knows the real answer. It's great to discuss them and share ideas. And I love to hear people's perspectives on all of this stuff because yeah, there's a lot of things that we think about differently, right? And I love to hear what other people have to say. And plus, it's fun to know too that other people think similarly about certain things, right? So I'm not going to lie about that. So anyway, welcome. My whiskey tonight. So I was out a couple of weeks ago at Total Wine and More and just grabbed a bunch of the little bottles because I can't keep buying bottles of whiskey every week. Some weeks I'm lucky to get awesome gifts like I did last week from Carmen and Derek, and that whiskey was fantastic and got me kind of drunk. So I have to be a little more careful, right? So this I grabbed. It's been a while since I've had Scotch, single malt Scotch, which any of you who've been watching for a while know that's my first and foremost favorite kind of whiskey, is single malt Scotch whiskey. And this is a Grangestone. It's a Highland whiskey, and double maturation. And what drew me to it is it's a rum cask finish. And I tend to really enjoy these whiskeys that are finished in barrels of other kinds of alcohol. So rum, sherry cask is always pretty enjoyable. And then of course there's like the Jameson that's finished in beer casks, like IPAs and stouts, and that's pretty cool experience. So yeah, I'm gonna try this tonight, and I've been missing scotch because I haven't had a lot of it lately. Um, and it's my first whiskey love, single malt scotch. Um, so yeah, ooh, I can smell the rum. I like it. Let me get a little sniff here before I put it in my glass. Yeah, definitely I can smell the rum on that. That's got a pretty good color. Actually, it looks a little bit like pea right here against the screen, but over here it looks pretty good. So let's see. Let's see what I get, shall we? All right, so Grangestone. So rum cask finished single malt whiskey. If you're just joining me, I'm gonna take a little whiff. Yep, definitely. I get the rum. Some floral notes in there, which might be because of the rum. Yeah, that's what I get most of, some floral. We'll see what some floral in the rum. That's what I'm getting in terms of my nose. Let's try this trick again. Ooh, that burned a little. All right, nothing new that way. That really doesn't make a difference to me. I don't know. Maybe, I guess both of my nostrils have equal and fair and equal sniffers. I don't know. All right. Now's the real test, right? How does it taste? Although I tend to really enjoy the nose on things, even when I'm tasting wine, or which doesn't happen very often, but when I'm pouring wine at the tasting room, I can speak way more to the nose on things than I can usually to the taste. Ooh, that was fun. Okay, here we go. And if you haven't said hi yet, I see you. I see you here. So, hey, say hi. And if you're having a little drink of something, have a little drink with me and tell me what you're drinking. All right. So, I am drinking the Grangestone single malt. It's a Highland whiskey, single malt Scotch whiskey, rum cask finish. Let's see. I know you guys are just like waiting for what I have to say. A little bit of a burn, kind of short burn is good. So for those of you wondering what I'm doing, so I let it sit on my tongue for a minute to kind of see what comes up. And the rum is, pretty present in there for me. Hey, Don, nice to see you. Let me know what you're drinking. Hey, Beam and Ginger Ale's cool, Sean. I'm glad you have a drink. So yeah, I'm like this. It's, it's got definitely the rum. The rum is a big part of this one. And I like that. I like there to be this kind of extra flavor, if you will. It's a pretty mild finish, pretty short, but there is a little bit of a burn. The rum I get right on the tongue, and I get a little bit of the floral hints on the way back down. On the way back down. This is what I'm saying. Down my throat when I swallow it. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So anyway, it's pretty enjoyable. I mean, it's not an overwhelming, exciting experience, but I wouldn't spit it out. Let's say that. So I'll keep drinking it tonight while we're talking about these weird-ologies. So again, if you're here, say hi, guys. Let me know you're here. Even if you're here just for a minute, It's fun to know who stops by. And don't worry, I won't out you if you don't want people to know that you showed up to Whiskey and Weird, right? So anyway, I was a little inspired by my friend Dean. Although, Dean, I don't even know if we've ever actually met. Your wife is one of my favorite people in the world, and maybe we've met at some point, I'm sure. But you inspired me when you asked about astrology. Now, I will not profess, I already said this at the intro of the show tonight, I will not profess to be an expert on any of this stuff, but that's not what this show is about. It's not about expertise. It's about interest and exploration, basically, in Whiskey and Weird, and inviting people to just step in and talk about it and explore it and think about things in new ways, right? So the whiskey's fun. I'm not a whiskey person. Hi, Jonas. I'm not, I am now a whiskey person, but I'm certainly not a whiskey expert, right? But I really like learning about it and trying new whiskeys. So yeah, let me know, guys, what are you drinking? I'm drinking the Grangestone single malt scotch, which is my go-to. Always love the single malt scotch. I was looking at a Scotland Scotch whiskey map. Of course, Highland Scotch comes from a huge chunk of the map. And there's Campbelltown. And on the map that I was looking at, it was like in pink, which is probably what drew my eye to it, because anyone who knows me knows pink's kind of a thing for me, right? But if anyone knows any good Scotch whiskeys available anywhere in stateside that are from Campbelltown, I'd really love to branch out and try some different ones, because mostly what I've tried are either Highland Scotches or Speyside Scotches. If you don't know what that means, I will share a map later of the different kind of what they call states, the different states in Scotland where the different kind of whiskeys are made. Again, I'm just learning too, like they each have some significant like notes and things to them based on where they come out of. But I don't know that much about it yet. I just know that they are different, and I would love to start learning more. But Speyside so far, probably one of the most common, even though Highland is a much bigger area, Speysides are really common and really well loved. Like your Glenlivet, Glenfiddich, those are all from Speyside, and those, of course, being some of my favorites. But hi, Lisa. Hi, Jacqueline. You guys, thanks for coming in. I hope you're having a lovely Wednesday. It's hump day. It's the last day of March. Can you believe it that we're already a quarter of the way through the year? It's remarkable. So let's talk some weird-ologies. But first, let me tell you about an interesting synchronicity that I had around this. So, part of all this for me is about just showing up, like, and it's funny because people often comment about oh, excuse me, Jacqueline, am I familiar with proper number 12? Yes, as a matter of fact, I've tasted it here on the show, and that's what I pre-funked with tonight. So you must be my sister or something. That's actually what I pre-funked. I had a little bit before. So yes, I am familiar with it. So awesome. But you must have been feeling me or something. That's what sisters do, right? At least in my family. It's good. No? Do you like it? I like it. So anyway, these synchronicities. So I hang out with this really cool 4-year-old a couple of days a week. Actually, a few days a week, 3 days a week, the afternoon, been at the parks with her pretty much all afternoon this week. And she has some, there's parents, right? Meeting parents and checking, talking to them as the kids are playing. And and so part of all of this for me is like, not just in this show. And I'm realizing where I was when I got distracted by the comment. This show is just kind of about courage for me, about stepping out and being who I am, and just kind of owning all my weird stuff that I think about, and just being true to myself, loving people wholeheartedly, because I do, trying to love myself more, because that's my biggest problem. And just being okay with who I am, and encouraging people to be okay with who they are too. And finding my people. This is about finding my people. And you have to be authentic. You have to be for real yourself in order to find your true people, right? And so I started that here, and it was kind of a big thing for me. And sometimes people do comment to me how courageous that I am. And it has taken courage, because it is kind of scary, and especially the first couple months, to get on here and talk about weird stuff and talk about experiences that I've had and who I am. But now I'm like kind of finding my place in my own skin. And if the opportunity arises, I show up to it, with people that I'm just meeting, which doesn't always happen. It's not like I walk around people and, the grocery store and get in their faces and be like, hey, do you like ghosts and Bigfoot? Because no, I don't do that. But I have these couple dads that I've met at the park, somehow got on the subject, only to find that one of them's kind of into whiskey, and we learned some stuff, and that people aren't as weirded out by this subject as some people are. Now, of course, these men are a bit younger than me, so maybe it's they're just cooler to it. I don't know. But there was a guy I met yesterday, and he happens to be a psychologist. And but we were talking about this, and I said, it's really weird that you're talking about psychology, because I'm doing a show. I do this show called Whiskey and Weird, and we got this really cool conversation about it, because he said, most of my colleagues don't know, but I kind of explore a lot of this parapsychology, this other stuff over here, and he mentioned that his wife was really into astrology, and it was just a really cool conversation, and very synchronistic, because him being a psychologist, and psychology being one of the things I actually wanted to touch on tonight. So anyway, yeah, props for synchronicities, right? Anybody had any weird synchronicities this week? Tell me about them. I'd love to hear them. So anyway, let's see. Jacqueline's there. All right. Don't forget to say hi. Tell me if you're having a drink or not. And sorry, I keep moving this thing around. But weird-ologies. So here's these thoughts that I've had about, hi, my other sister, Karen. Welcome. Slanja. All right. Love my sisters. Anyway, weird-ologies. So I think about these different things, and the ones in particular that came to mind, of course, were psychology, which is, of course, study of the psyche, right? And all of that goes with it. Numerology and astrology, and psychology, of course, being not a psych, it's not a paranormal kind of weird supernatural thing so much. It's readily accepted for the most part. It's a scientific look. And I was starting to think about, what kind of separates these things. And I think that where I came to, what I came to, and mind you, remember, I never stay any place for a really long time, really, when it comes to this completely, because other things will come up. But I think we have different ologies that try in an essence to control how we perceive our existence in our human condition. And then we have others that are meant to expose stuff for us, to show us aspects of the human condition that will be helpful to us. I don't know. Let me know if that's making any sense. So I think about psychology, and I think about a lot of that is trying to explain human behavior in ways that feel kind of safe to us, that in ways that might validate who we are, in ways that are very much rooted in what we know about science and health and well-being. And then that it's not inherently bad, right? Because it's really healthy for us to be able to find a place to connect with, especially if we're struggling through things, and And we need that. We need to be associating, I think, with at least one of the ologies. But then I think like numerology and astrology are more about showing us, about exposing us to the potential of who we are, of our beings. I was thinking about like mythology, and I think that's kind of I think that's a both and kind of situation, because I think that, a lot of mythology, well, I don't know what I think about this. Mythology basically it comes about in terms of explaining things that, we don't understand, right? But there's a lot of people out there that would argue that some of that stuff is actually more real than we may realize, and that because those ideas and those belief systems, many of which, like if you look at Roman mythology, Greek mythology, the all of that stuff, it's, is rooted thousands of years ago, in a time that we all have no idea what the hell was going on. And a lot of people believe that there's probably some truth to that, especially when we start talking about angel realms, and we start talking about some of the stuff we talked about a few weeks ago, and aliens, and who are we really on this earth, right? Like who are we, how are we showing up? And there's a lot of people, one that, there's actually archaeological evidence, for instance, that giants actually existed in some way, shape, or form. There's indicators of really, really small people, and different things coming out that suggest that some of these things that people have experienced for a long time actually did exist. So mythology is one of those things that's like, so what is it really? Is it a way to control, or was it based in some aspect of truth, or an exposing of our truth and who we are really, in this, and how to support the human condition? As I'm saying this, that could very much just be like, okay, this is just what really happened, but we're going to call it mythology because it's utterly terrifying to consider huge creatures or huge, multiple gods as people perceive them. I don't know. So those are my first thoughts on that. Karen, I see you're drinking champagne. Lovely. Anybody have questions? Anybody have thoughts? I really welcome your wisdom and your questions about these particular things. And am I making any sense? Because I know that sometimes I don't. But that's where I'm thinking. There's this distinction between these more human-based sciences that kind of keep us boxed in. I don't think religion, I think religion is that. So let's see, Jacqueline, I'm going to pull your thing up here on the screen. Jacqueline says, it just occurs to me that they are all frameworks for making sense of mystery, psychology being the scientific method application, mythology definitely about making sense of mystery, for sure. But now, as I say that, I think, we assume that mythology is mystery because it's based in information that we weren't exposed to in its real time. And that's kind of where my brain is going right now as I'm talking about this. But I do believe that astrology and numerology are, I don't think that's information that that humans necessarily came up with, and not so much a framework. I feel like that. I feel like there's a truth to those things because so much of it makes sense. And even the guy I was talking to yesterday, he was saying he never really thought much of astrology until he had. I think that he said that, sorry, I get distracted. I was just telling someone today, I get distracted by these comments and then I totally lose my train of thought. But anyway, that he said he finally had it done, and he said his full astrological chart described him more accurately than any psychological profile he had ever done or experienced, and that really resonated with me. So my sister, let's see, Karen says there's a grain of truth in all information. I think there's more than a grain of truth in information, but I certainly agree that we resonate to we take in what we are ready for, and if it resonates with us, and it's all about vibrations, which is what numerology, for instance, and numbers are about. Labels for developing awareness. Again, I agree. I don't think numbers are labels, though. I don't think astrological charts are necessarily labels, but I do think that what we have created, psychology and these other different kinds of ologies, to even philosophy, which is an analogy, but the way that tends to be more about, okay, I need my human brain to try and make sense of what's going on. Let's see. So Don says most belief systems are a means of social controls. Monotheistic belief systems do a better job in focusing the population. Yeah, I think if you get into religion, absolutely. But I don't think I think that I don't think numerology or astrology necessarily is a religion, or psychology. But I do agree that religion is completely about social control. It's about, and I think it's both. It's for the most part has been created to prevent us from understanding some of these other things, because it's kind of scary. I mean, if you start diving into this stuff, it can be really alarming, what you find out. So and I think I had this conversation with a couple of my sisters not too long ago about astrology and our signs, and how we relate to them. Right, Jacqueline? We were having this conversation, I think, and how, and whether they really are us or not. And I find that that for me, the more connected I become to my authentic self, the more I step outside of my ego and the human constructs of my existence, the more I see myself in that astrological chart, the more I see myself even in my basic numerology numbers. And that makes sense to me, because those are meant to expose us at our core, at their very essence of our heart and our light, right? And who we are before, during, after we actually have this meat suit that we're in on the earth. Let's see. Lisa says, I think these are attempts to explain things we don't completely understand. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's what science and religion and stuff does, a lot of. Psychology will keep going. And, of course, there's parapsychology, which of course invites some more information and starts to involve some of this other stuff like numerology and astrology. And I think that, we get comfort in religion is about comfort. It's about, well, I think religion is a lot about, personally, is a lot about a lack of accountability. Because in my experience, I find that a religion, so often we want to hand everything over to God. It's all about what God wants, what God does, being punished by God, what have you. And I believe in God, but I believe God gave us what he intended for us to have, and then said, use it, work with it, learn from it. And here's all these tools I'm going to provide you with to really live from your divine source. I don't think we are puppets to God. I don't think that's really how that works. But religion tries to put us in that, I think, a lot of the time. But I think religion is a little different. It shouldn't be completely separate. We want to separate science, religion, but I just think it gets really wonky when we start trying to dive into those details. And that, and I think there has to be a both and, understanding religion is a science in and of itself, right? So, but we definitely find comfort in that. We find comfort in being able to confess our sins at church every week or whatnot. We find comfort in doing, having knowing that we're psychologically healthy and understanding these different ways that our brains work, or doing, um, personality tests and things like that. It's validation, right? There's a lot of validation there. And all of them um, can provide validation to us. But it all depends. Again, that comes back to the what are we ready for? I think that we start with things like psychology when we start to want to understand, why do I experience life this way? Why are um why is this hard for me? And science will definitely help us kind of see some of how the brain is working. But then we move past that a little bit. Some of us do anyway, and we go, okay, well, this isn't, I get this, but there's more to it here. There's more of a why. And I think that's when we really kind of get into things like, the astrology and the numerology, and the fascinating thing about those is that, they're very, very specific. Numerology is really specific. It comes down to the day I was born, the letters in my name that I was given, all of these different things. And when you start really honing in on that, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is totally me, right? And we have to remember that these numerology, astrology are about potential. They're about our potential. So we will read them sometimes in different parts in our lives and go, wait, does this really work for me? Like, for instance, I'm a 5. My life path number is a 5, which is what you get when you add up your birth month, your day, and the year you were born. And some of the things in there I've read for a long time, and I'm like, this is just that, no, this isn't me. But what I realized is that I was living under the influence of familial cycles, genetic, all these generational cycles, environment. And so as I kind of peel away some of these layers and get to the root of who I am, I'm absolutely about travel and adventure. Never done a lot of it, but it's really what I want to do. Addiction, it says addiction is an issue. And we tend to go to, like, drugs or alcohol. And sadly, a lot of people, Keith Richards is also a life path 5, for instance. But I'm addicted to sugar, and probably addicted to other more societal, responses. A lot of us have addictions that are kind of unconventional, right? But then there's a lot of other things in there that totally, like, this is absolutely me. Someone who likes to learn a lot of different things, who can speak to a lot of things, so you start to read it. And when you really want to know yourself, anyway, when you really want to get your self. So Jacqueline says, you mentioned them as revealing soul or essence. I see them as revealing our current human form. Yeah, I think that they are how we are existing in our current human form. But I think that our astrology and numerology is very much about how our essence is meant to be, and meant to be experiencing this human form, if that makes sense. So it's meant to be how we're experiencing it. So I've come to this point where I read it, I'm like, am I doing that yet? If this isn't me yet, maybe I haven't peeled away enough of the layers. Yeah, it's how it does reveal our soul and our essence and how we're meant to be, because this is just a condition that we're experiencing for the sake of learning. And in my opinion, that's just my opinion. So yeah, I think we're thinking as typical, Jacqueline, you and I come to the same conclusion, just from different sides of it, right? But thank you for asking for that clarification. So again, these sciences are about, particularly astrology, numerology, are about kind of understanding our soul, our essence, and how we're meant to be experiencing that within this current human form. But I think, personality is such a thing. I mentioned environment. I mentioned, the familial cycles, our childhoods, trauma we endure. These things are the challenge of finding that we have challenges and obstacles that are placed in front of us in order for us to work through that and come back to. That's what ascension, this idea of ascension, is all about. Is that, okay, I'm born into this human form and I'm going to have all this shit thrown at me, and then I'm supposed to emerge. I'm supposed to still come out in the end and be like, okay, I did it. I made it through this, and this is who I'm meant to be right here. And a lot of things get in the way of that. Mental illness, right? And a lot of times when we get stuck in the psychology part of that, we get trapped there. We get trapped under this box of mental illness and emotional dysfunction and things like that. And we all have it. We all experience those things, but we're not meant to stay there. We don't have to stay there, I don't believe. And I think that's really, really the difference. Even looking, at astrology, when you do like a full astrological, a first full birth chart on yourself, the day you were born, at the exact time that you were born, in the exact location that you were born. I don't know how many people out there are born at the exact same time, right? Like, I know you can say, but within even seconds or minutes, I'm not really sure, but that's a really specific time. And to be able to kind of hone in on that moment, on all of these things, Venus is in what, and Saturn is here, and what's your sun rising and your moon rising, all these different aspects of that fit in for you, right? That's pretty amazing. So, Jacqueline, positive psychology seeks to counter what? You just said positive psychology seeks to counter that. And I don't always get these comments in real appropriate time. So could you clarify that for me? That would be awesome. Hi, Jim. Yeah, so I can elaborate, or we can, I don't know what that means. So, but I think that, anyway, I think numerology, astrology, as I said before, are opportunities. Oh, the focus on mental illness. Oh, yes. Yeah. So gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So the positive psychology. So it's help us. It's not about saying, okay, you're mentally ill and that's just who you are, right? It's about saying, well, this is just something you're going through as a result of trauma, of familial cycles, of generational cycles, and that kind of thing. So you're right. And Jacqueline, I think, I brought up psychology, and even after talking to this guy I talked with yesterday, parapsychology is really becoming a thing, because we're learning so much more about the brain. And as I'm saying this, I remember I asked him a question about, we said something about the brain, and he was sharing an experience he had. And, I brought up this kind of, this general rule that we always hear, that we only use like 10% of our brain. And, he explained that actually in the field, that's something that's argued quite a bit, because people don't know. And as I was thinking about later, I think the problem is the focus on our brain. I think that more of who we are really stems from our heart centers than from our brain, to be honest. And brains are very much a tool for the human condition, and we're, but that's maybe not what we need to be focusing on. It's easier to focus on that because we can actually look at brains and see the activity in there, and study it after people pass, and do look at all of that different stuff. So it's a lot easier to consider that. But anyway, I'm going to take a little sip of my whiskey. Anybody else need a sip? My voice is getting raspy. You guys make me talk a lot. Anybody have thoughts, questions? You guys are quiet. Of course, not my sisters, because that's pretty much par for the course, right, ladies? It's too bad Kelly can't be on here. My sister Kelly, I'm giving a shout out to my sister Kelly because she told me she likes it when I do that. But she lives in the UK, so she's sleeping hopefully right now. But I'm happy to have my other sisters here and Jim. Don't know if Dean's here. Dean, are you here? You have not said anything, and I know you are interested in this. And I was hoping you'd be here to chime in about the astrology piece. And maybe you can come on. If you are like an expert, you can come on and share. But okay, so here. If you guys, how many of you know your sign, know anything about that, and how much of it resonates with you? I find that I'm an Aquarian, so even just some of the basic stuff that an Aquarius would be totally resonate with me. And again, Jacqueline, we had this conversation about whether or not you were a real Leo. And I definitely see that. And we were having a discussion, my sisters, a couple of my sisters and I, about how we show up. Like, do you see me that way? Two of my sisters happen to be Leos. And the interesting thing about that is there's definitely an overlap, but they also are very, very different people. And all of that, of course, would come down to their full birth charts. So yeah, so Jacqueline knows Leo, Virgo, rising, moon, and Cancer. So I don't know what Kelly's is, right? I don't think she's had that done yet, but it's really, really fascinating. And even if you have never really been into that, if you've never been into numerology or astrology, it's kind of fun to actually to get into it and read a little bit and see what it says. And as I said, it's really about what our potential is. It doesn't mean that we're actually going to be that 100%. And so Sean says, I sometimes feel it's all self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what? I think that horoscopes tend to be that way. Like, I think that when people read their daily horoscope, I think that can kind of play that role. But I think a real astrological chart and understanding those different things and studying them for the right reasons wouldn't tend to do that. But yeah, I think for the general public, perhaps. But I certainly, I don't, that's not that for me, that's not how an astrological chart resonates with me or how it shows up. And they're very complicated. They have a lot of information, and mine certainly says, it says the good and the bad, right? So when mine tells me that I'm really likely to be an addict, I'm not really trying to be that. So I don't know. Yeah. Oh, Carmen. So Carmen here says, and you've told me this before, I find that I really resonate with my lunar sign, Pig, and not as much with my astrological sign, Sagittarius. So Carmen, have you ever done a full astrological chart with all of your different, rising signs and things like that? Because I'm positive that that the two overlap, like they all overlap, right? So they do, but I'm not sure how those lunar signs, where they come into that, but they are going to have to do with whatever how the moon, where the moon is, right? What your moon rising is in your astrological. So that'd be just an interesting thing to discover, because that may just be the aspect of your astrological chart that you do resonate more with, which is your moon rising. So that would be why, and that makes sense. Dawn says, "Don't know, not really my thing." Yeah, it doesn't have to be your thing. And yeah, I don't. Yeah, so cool. I don't agree with you, Dawn, but that's totally awesome. I think there were much more than just space dust. I think our bodies are just a bunch of particles and microbes and weird things thrown together for the most part. Actually, when I was talking to that guy, he was talking about, getting deeper and deeper into our bodies. And I started thinking about like microbes, because I just read a book about microbes to this little girl I watch. And I was like, reading this, and then I was listening to this guy. I'm like, what if like microbes exist in their own little world and they have conversations with each other like this telepathically? Like, how deep do these levels go? Totally a different show, a different episode. So Jacqueline, your Chinese zodiac is fire horse. Okay. Yeah, I don't really know a ton about the lunar signs, but that could be kind of fun if there's someone in on here. So Carmen, if that's something you knew a lot about, maybe you should come on, drink whiskey, and talk lunar signs with me. That would be kind of fun. Because yeah, I'd love to have people on. You know how I like to talk. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. Anyone else resonate with theirs? Caught the end of Lucy today. Don't know what that means. What does caught the end of Lucy today mean, Jacqueline? Have I had too much whiskey? Jonas says, if the moon affects the ocean and people are mostly water, stands to assume that it affects us too. Absolutely it does. And probably more of us would resonate with our moon signs than anything else when we really, and I think that's why it's important to know it all and to figure it all. Oh, the movie Lucy. I've not seen it, so I'm really confused. And sometimes if you guys are having a conversation in the comments about some things, it won't show up all the time here, just so you know. Which I don't know why, but it doesn't. Oh, okay. Info about using 100% of our brains. Yeah. So yeah, I think that art is what did it say? Art imitates life, right? Or it predicts it, or there's a lot of truth. I think last week we were talking a bit about how we the truths of the matrix and things like that. So anyway, I think there we go. The movie Lucy. I've not watched it, but I've heard it's pretty good. I'll have to check it out. But thanks for distracting me. Jeez. Jacqueline and Dawn, people are crazy. So yeah, ologies, numerology. So numerology is fascinating to me. I love like doing people's numbers, just usually their birth date or their life path number. I haven't gotten a lot into doing names and things like that, though it can be really fascinating. And I like to do it because sometimes it just helps me understand people. And I think even astrology can do that. I mean, to your point, Sean, I think we have to be careful not to expect things from certain people. For instance, oh, you're a Capricorn, that means, you're going to be such and such or whatnot. But I think especially when you're struggling with someone in particular, it can be really helpful to know things like their numbers, because they are an indicator of what their life struggles might be and why things might be difficult for them. And sometimes for me, even though it may be something they would never tell me or I would never know 100% about them, if I have an idea, if I have an idea, okay, distracted by a comment again. If I have an idea about someone, it just helps me kind of, just hold them in a different level of compassion. Yeah, I have Jonas. This has actually been a topic. So Jonas is distracted by my reflection, which has come up like a lot of times actually early on. And I asked people about that. I've tried everything to fix the reflection because it's actually not the lighting, it's the reflection off of my screen. And so I don't know how to do that without taking my glasses off. But if I take off my glasses, then I can't read the comments. So, but thanks for mentioning. I've tried everything. I don't know how to change it. It doesn't really seem to make a difference, especially because it's nighttime, and it's generally dark in here. But even when I do my another thing that I do, it happens. So if anyone, I have tried this. We can talk about that later. I have tried everything to do it. Sometimes this is the only thing. This is the only thing that works. So I could just try to hold my chin down like this the whole time. But thanks for getting me off topic. I really appreciate that. Um, I don't know. I'll keep working on it. I'll keep working on it. But now I feel like a complete failure. So thanks. Um, anyway, any more questions? Anyone have any thoughts about ologies? These weird-ologies. I mentioned this book earlier. If you weren't here, it's the book that I'm reading, Fringeology. It's pretty cool. I really like the guy's perspective. And it talks about near-death experiences, telepathy, all these different things. And yeah, oh God, you guys are killing me. Okay, yeah, I'll worry about that for next time. I have tried a few different things, and I actually have anti-glare coating actually on my glasses. So, and I don't think that's meant for how you perceive me. That's meant for how I perceive my screen, right? So anyway, I'm going to sign off because now I'm really distracted, and I'm going to have to go and try to solve the problem of the glare on my glasses for the future. But you guys, thanks for chiming in. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, you guys are awesome. I love my people. I love my weirdos. And if you have some cool, weird, fringy kind of topic that you are totally into, let me know, because I'd love to have you on to talk with me and the group. And yeah, so stay weird, everybody. And I will. You always learn something. I'm glad, Sean. I'm glad you learned something. That's what I'm here for, apparently, according to my astrological sign. So anyway, you guys take care, and I will chime in with you next week. I will be in a different location next Wednesday night because I'm going to be house sitting. So maybe the lighting will be different there. I don't know. Although I think I've done one from there before. So anyway, take care, everybody. Thanks for being here. Peace out.